Hey, what's up guys? Kevin over here from Pedal PT out here in Portland, Oregon. Hope you all had a great weekend. Just kind of getting back into the swing of things. Wanted to take some time today. Let's talk a little bit about this is a big word. Let's throw it out there. The interconnectivity and the interconnectedness of bike fitting. Sounds like a mouthful, right? Well, it is. It's all connected in there. Like I said, when we adjust pieces, parts on the bike, it influences everything else. People assume that you just adjust your cleat. All that's doing is adjusting the foot position. What I'm going to do today is kind of talk. We'll get a little bit down the rabbit hole. This is, like I said, this is going to be a lot of information as far as kind of us thinking through how the positioning influences one, influences the other, because we have to think of this all as one big whole unit as well. So what we're going to do is let's start out with, I always like to start whenever I have new clients, whenever I have students, whenever I have new PTs at the office, I like to kind of think about bike fit as it's based on the saddle. We always kind of think about saddle height. So we've got the bike, we've got the saddle height. So what we're going to do is we're going to think about what happens to the saddle height in relation to the cleats, to different positioning. So to give you an example, this is going to make more sense as I talk this through here. So like I said, so when we start out, we're looking at cleat position. And like I said, I always kind of say, if I'm going to move someone's cleat, so let's say we're going to move that cleat backwards, which is actually going to move that person's foot forwards more on that pedal. What does that effectively do to the saddle height? Does that raise or does that lower the saddle? So you can start to think of, well, I just moved the cleat. So by moving the cleat backwards, the foot moves further forward. So it's actually now reaching further now at the bottom of the pedal stroke, which effectively means that I have effectively raised the saddle. Okay? It's hard to kind of visualize this through a little bit or to kind of start thinking in relation to saddle. So therefore, conversely then, if I were to move the cleat forward, which moves the foot back, I'm essentially lowering the saddle a tiny bit. Now, this doesn't seem like it's going to be that much impact, but I'll tell you what, in bike fitting, 3 millimeters, sometimes even 2 millimeters can make a huge difference, and it all affects itself up the chain. This is why one of the facts why I'm not a huge fan of just people coming in for cleat fitting. They call up, yeah, I need to just get my cleats fit. Well, by adjusting your cleats, we're also affecting your saddle position and your saddle height. So by just going into a bike shop saying like, I need my cleats fit, that will throw off your saddle height. So a lot of times if the cleat is moved backwards, so the foot moves farther forward, we do need to sometimes kind of chase that saddle down to make up that difference. Not all the time, but sometimes it will add up that way too. So like I said, so when we move the cleat, we're just gonna kind of do the forward and backwards. We won't get into rotation, medial, lateral. There's a lot of factors to play with, but in general, we move a cleat backwards, which moves the foot forward. We're effectively raising the saddle. We move the cleat forward, which essentially moves the foot back on the pedal. You're effectively lowering the saddle, okay? Now, let's also think about, we can raise and lower that saddle, but also let's think about moving that saddle or sliding the saddle either forward or towards the handlebars or aft, which is towards the rear wheel. By moving that saddle aft or back towards that rear wheel, are we raising the saddle or lowering the saddle? Here's another good one to think about. So we'll let you think about it. Come up with your answer. But the correct answer is that when we move that saddle back, we're actually moving that person further away. So we're actually effectively raising that saddle. Okay? Vice versa, if we move the saddle forward or towards the handlebars, sliding it on those rails, nothing else changes, we are effectively lowering that saddle slightly as well. Okay? If we tilt the saddle, and we can tilt the saddle nose up or nose down. If we tilt the saddle nose up, what are we doing? Are we raising the saddle or are we lowering the saddle? Again, this is hard to think about. But the correct answer is if you raise the nose of the saddle up, we're actually raising the saddle. If we put the saddle nose down, we're lowering the saddle. Okay? Now all this position can also be related to the handlebars as well. But I think it's always nice to start thinking about this interconnectivity, how if we adjust cleats, that will adjust saddle position. If we adjust certain things of the saddle, that also adjusts our height and our reach. Okay? If we raise a saddle up, we're actually going to be coming further away from the handlebars, or actually increasing that cockpit depth. Okay, why is that? Well, that saddle lives on a seat tube that's angled typically. So as we raise the saddle up, it's actually going up and actually backwards a little bit. So by raising the saddle, we're actually coming a little bit further away from the handlebars. Vice versa, if we lower the saddle down, the angle of that seat tube, as we lower down, we're actually going to come closer, and we're actually going to narrow that cockpit down even more. So each one of these parts influences one another, and so on and so forth. So a lot of times when you guys are adjusting cleats, adjusting saddle position, think about what this is going to do to reach, or the distance from the handlebars, or what is that going to do to saddle height. Another good example is the one that everybody gets correct, that's easy. If we move that saddle aft or backwards, that's actually going to increase our cockpit depth or make us reach further. If we slide the saddle forward, of course, that will bring the bars closer to us as well. Kind of all little concepts to think about, but ultimately it kind of starts with the foot. It's then related to saddle positioning, and that then leads to positioning of the handlebars. So a little bit of taste of interconnectivity. Moving cleats influences saddle height. Who knew? So check it out. Otherwise, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them down there. I'll kind of answer through, see what you guys think. But bike fit, a lot more complicated than you think. Cleats influence saddle position influences pedaling, and reach to handlebars as well. All right, guys, have a great day. We'll talk to you next time. Again, Kevin over here, Pedal PT. Have a great day. See ya.